This is going to be a very non-traditional tour. I'm not going to really talk about the Meeker family and the history. I'm going to talk more about a little bit about the historic preservation and the challenges of running a house museum. This was actually the first museum for the city of Greeley. The city museum was located here. If I'm not mistaken, it was the 30s, 20s or 30s. The city bought the property. The house itself was built in 1870 when the Union Colony was founded. It is some distance from the center of town, and the word is that Nathan Meeker wanted to show optimism, that the town was going to grow, and so he located not quite a mile from Lincoln Park, which was really the kind of the center of town, but to talk architecture. This is Italianate style, vernacular of course, but you'll notice that it's very plain. And of course that was Nathan Meeker, Nathan and his wife Arvilla. They did not believe in a lot of ornamentation. Supposedly they did not decorate for Christmas. And in a few minutes we're going to go inside, and Katie, who's our assistant curator of collections, is going to talk about some of the really interesting pieces that the Meekers brought with them when they came from Ohio. But we're looking at, actually it's adobe construction. Yep, it's very unique because it's two-story adobe construction. And Nathan Meeker thought this would be the perfect climate for adobe. And it's been a nightmare for us preservationists ever since, because this really is not, you can cut that part out. This really is not a terrific climate for adobe. Adobe really needs a dry, arid type climate. Those of you who are familiar with adobe, it's essentially a percentage of sand mixed with a binder, oftentimes straw and animal dung and earth. There needs to be some earth in there also. It's formed into bricks, and I think once we get inside you'll actually see one of the adobe bricks that was preserved during one of the subsequent restorations. But he thought, well, we'll build this out of adobe. And so it's been somewhat of a challenge. You see some of the patches that have occurred over the years. During that last big windstorm, we found a bunch of shake shingles in the yard, and so it's about to get a new roof on top. We have the bust of Nathan over here, and if you notice some of the panels I pointed out, of course they added on as Peggy related. She talked, I think she talked about Nathan becoming the White River agent. Real quick, the background story: the house was built in 1870. Meeker borrowed money from Horace Greeley. Horace Greeley passed away. The heirs required that Nathan Meeker pay back those loans, and not being a wealthy man, he took the job as White River Indian agent at the White River Agency in northwest Colorado. And that's where the story starts to go downhill for poor Nathan. He felt that he should teach the Utes how to farm and change from being a semi-nomadic people to a farming culture. They weren't as thrilled about that as he was. And so the rub really came when he started plowing up their horse racing track. And the Utes really loved their horse racing and gambling. And so push came to shove. 9 men at the agency were murdered, and so on and so forth. Arvilla and their daughter were taken hostage along with some of the other women, and for a number of weeks were hostage of the Utes, and then a negotiated settlement came about, and Arvilla moved back into this house with their children, and we have images of the family here. Their daughter Rosine lived in the house until 1908, I believe, 1908 or 1910, when she moved into another residence. One last story. 2 years ago, and Peggy kind of alluded to it in her talk yesterday, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, we got a call, and it was from a local couple, and they said, we have 300 and some odd letters in their original envelopes of people that applied to Nathan Meeker to come here to join the Union Colony. And so this being just a phenomenal historical resource, we were really excited about it. It became a national story because it was part of an estate settlement. They couldn't donate it. They wanted to donate the letters, but because there were siblings involved and so on, they had an appraised value. And so, like I said, it got picked up on the AP wire, and so we started getting checks in from as far away as Florida. And one gentleman in Denver even sent us $1.68. And we raised enough money to purchase the collection as well as to conserve it. And so we had a paper conservator come in and open up the letters, take the creases out. But the really, really fun story is this couple's father was the little boy who collected these. And one day, it wasn't at this house, it was one of the other, I believe it was one of the other Meeker residences. They were doing some carpentry work, and this was in the 30s. And this little 8-year-old boy saw somebody throwing all these letters out the window into a waste paper bin. They were getting rid of all this stuff, cleaning the house out. And he was an amateur stamp collector. And these envelopes had pretty stamps on them. And so he went over to the trash bin and collected these 300 letters up and took them home and put them in shoe boxes. And periodically they were brought out for show and tell day at school or whatever. And it's really sweet because some of the envelopes are missing the stamp. He cut the stamps out. And the other thing that's really neat about this collection is Nathan Meeker, in his own hand, made a note on every single envelope. And he noted how much money the person had, and then he made these interesting editorial comments on the outside of the envelope. Like one of the envelopes said, "Catholic, we don't want them." And so on and so forth. So it's just a fascinating snapshot of that 1869 to 1870 period. So let's go on inside.
So one major point of interest for the founding of the Union Colony is that they moved here through the railroad. The railroad was built, it was here, so that helps with the pieces that they brought with them. So for example, the mirror that's in the dining room, you can see that it's very large, that if it was, during the time period of the, wagon train, being on a wagon, they wouldn't have brought these large pieces, with them. And so that also makes it interesting of what they chose, to bring with them, what they chose to pay, to have freighted out here on the train. We do have some other items from the Meekers. This is his secretary and also his pin set. And then we also have his guns that are in there in the kitchen. But one thing that we're trying to deal with is how to keep relevant and keep the site, useful to, current day, interests and, just keeping it relevant. We used to be, open, on a regular day and everything, but we've had to cut back just because we didn't have the visitation that it's by appointment only now. So it's kind of a balance that we still want the site to be used and presented and interpreted, but you need the people to come to help that and help achieve that. We also have interesting issues with the collection items that are upstairs especially. We were trying to move a wardrobe out of one of the bedrooms because it just felt a bit crowded, and it can't come down the stairs. So it's stuck up there for right now. So there's just some interesting issues that might come up with potentially other items if we decide to make In the past, a discussion has been to have one of the bedrooms, kind of cleared out, to have like an extra, exhibit space up there as, one possibility. But if we can't move items down the stairs, it's going to make that interesting and difficult. Any questions about the site?
What's this box on the map here?
I'm not sure. It's a box. I don't know.
Is there anything in it?
I don't know. I haven't opened it. We don't try to handle pieces when we don't need to, so it hasn't needed to be moved, so I haven't touched it. And we did used to have the clock. It used to be in working order and functioning. I'm not sure why. Well, I know why they decided not to, turn it just because it, wears down the gears and everything. But it'd be interesting to have, that sound in the home because it's very dead and silent.
What other pieces did they bring with them? You mentioned they would bring on the train.
The Meekers, I'm not sure exactly. I know the pieces that we still hold of theirs, but I'm not sure what they actually brought with them. We do have a list of what another Union Colony family brought, which is the Carpenter family, and one of their descendants recently donated a list that has the invoice of what they paid to have shipped out here. So, yeah.
So is any of this other furniture original?
All of it is historic, not necessarily original to the family.
Okay.
So,
Are there any ghosts?
not that we promote or acknowledge.
But there is a story of one
There
of
are
our
multiple stories. Yes.
our interpreters in costume was with a group, and did they go inside and then they came back out?
No, she came around from the side of the building and met the group out front.
Yep.
And they asked, "Oh, were you just upstairs?" And she hadn't entered the home yet.
Somebody looked out the window?
And one
Yeah,
of the
that's what
kids
they thought. They'd
pointed
seen
up to
something
the
upstairs.
one of the bedroom windows and said, "Well, you were just in the window. You were looking out at us."
I know how you can get people to come.
There it is.
But we promote facts, and that is not factual, so we will not be interpreting the site in that manner.
Did you go to the other room?
No, we haven't gone anywhere yet.
Awesome.
Just answering questions first. So, yeah, we can go through. Yes.
So the carpet, was this all restored or?
I think it's just a purchased
Okay.
piece. I don't think it's
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 not
based
recent.
on more historic, but it's
Okay.
not historic.
The wood floors, new, I mean, reasonably new.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's real narrow.
Like the.
And I think the wallpaper was done in the 90s.
The
Is that
the paper
right?
was redone,
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not
The house
that
was
bad.
actually in quite bad shape. My guess
Well, we
is there was
think,
probably a roof leak,
Whatever they brought with them on the
Okay.
train.
so it really did a number.
Because there wasn't anything here.
And you can see, obviously, the floor is kind of a modern oak.
Yeah. So did they sold the house at some point or? just stand together?
Let me see here, yes, they sold it. There was another family living here, and then the city ultimately bought it. And that's when it became the Meeker Museum, it was called. And so this was the first museum for the city. Yeah, there's a partial cellar,
Full-length
Yeah.
mirror.
where the furnace is.
Oh, okay.
But we access it.
Looks like they may have set their roof or ceiling height based upon the mirror.
Yeah.
Oh, that was either
That's
the.
first thing As Katie probably mentioned, the real challenge is historic houses, and it's not just us, but historic houses across the country. Like, how do you keep them relevant? How do you keep the public coming back and interested and so on? It's a pretty significant challenge.
Are you still learning, I don't know, like a second or third grade class? I can remember coming here on a tour.
Yeah. What we did was,
Would they have had wood floors?
the house was open, on a very regular basis a couple of years ago. And then it went to like twice a month.
An
And
open house kind of thing.
yeah, and so last year, we made a decision to open it by appointment. And that's actually worked really well, because basically we're adapting to your schedule, not necessarily our schedule. And so we're seeing a lot more visitation now, so. And Sarah Lester, our educator, has done quite a few school tours here. So. But once again, you got space constraints, it's tough to bring in a little bit bigger group. And so
What can you
on.
touch and what can't you touch? With
Yeah.
kids, right?
Yeah, and that's an ongoing thing. And we usually do a little talk with school groups about museum behavior.
Right.
Cool.
So did
Or-
they-
Kind of like an education.
Yeah, it's actually
What makes it
cover
really
for a
hard
modern
is like the
phone. There's
Please
actually
Touch Museums
it
anymore,
opens
the
up.
kids'
Yeah.
museums.
And
Yeah,
there's a
like
real
a
phone
very
button
interactive.
there in case somebody
Yeah.
does need to,
Yeah,
call
where
out
they're
or
encouraged.
something.
Big science center.
Do they make the
Style.
ceilings as
Yeah.
tall as the mirror?
I don't know, it seems,
Well, they build it around the cabinet upstairs, so I wonder if they build it around
well,
there.
I wonder if when they did some restoration work, because we tried
That's
to,
an
when
original
we moved
bigger
it
piece.
down,
Here.
it was that molding there on the side was really what was keeping it and making it so that it was too narrow of a space to get it down. So I wonder if they made it like just slightly like a half inch wider,
Wider than it used to
than
be.
the way it was when they put the thing up there to start with.
I love that mirror. It's awesome. Beautiful.
It's like a me-sized mirror.
It is.
Yeah, you don't have to stoop down to actually see.
And I also like the see-through fireplace.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's super
I
cool.
like that.
Once you warm it up, it's a pretty good heat set.
One short step to the top. The short step at the top.
It's hair. It's human hair, yeah.
Oh man, you would never have gotten that
Oh,
myself.
that's
That's
beautiful.
human
Don't run
hair,
into that.
so.
No, I saw that somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that there have been a couple of historic archaeology excavations.
Don't run into that. There's stuff in there that'll break if you.
Yeah, it looks like somebody has bumped into it, 'cause some of the pottery is on the bottom
It's
there.
already fallen, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the, oh, is this the one you cleaned up downstairs?
No, it's actually that wardrobe that's right there that has the bonnet for the typewriter on it.